caught red-handed. That's what stop 2 is all about. Means being grabbed and grabbing on the fingers, the hands, the wrists, and the lower forearms. Now, the classic definition that you'll find about being caught red-handed reads like this. It doesn't have a mythical origin. It is a straightforward allusion to having blood on one's hands after the execution or murder during poaching season. And the term originates, they say, from England, Northern Ireland, or Scotland. One important point about the Stop 2 study is that many of the skills that we will use will be introduced here and used again and again in Stop 3 on through Stop 6, which is on the ground. Just keep in mind that, as with all the Stop 6 series, we are trying to do very basic, simple, fundamental things, almost like a self-defense, almost like a crash course in self-defense. Every one of these things that we're going to do is a whole line of exploding study in another area. You might find in catch wrestling or boxing or whatever. I encourage you to pursue those because we can't do them all. And I'm just here trying to do some very simple, basic problem solving, almost in a crash course in self-defense manner. And that's really what the Stop 6 is all about. One of the subjects as we progress through the Stop 6 program, we like to discover and discuss who, what, where, when, how, and why. And in Stop 2, we place a priority on the who of the who, what, where, when, how, and why. And we ask the questions, the never-ending questions. Who are you really? What is your job? Who are you? What is your physical condition? And who do you really think you're going to be fighting? And who are you to carry or not carry a weapon of any kind? Just answer those questions for yourself. Who will judge your actions? Who will take revenge on you? Who will teach you how to fight? Who are the nearby witnesses? Who will come to help you if a fight starts? Continue to ask these who questions, and it'll help you design yourself and prepare for the future. What are the parameters of Stop 2? This is when two aggressors, they reach for each other, one at a time or both, and their hands catch each other's fingers or the hands or wrists or the lower forearms. And you often, so if I go reaching for you, your hands may go up, and if you go reaching for me, my hands may go up, and that begins the intertwinement, the possibility of all these particular grabs. And you often see this in arrests, and when people of various skill levels get involved in a grabbing or shoving match, or when one wants to prevent another from pulling a weapon or using a pulled weapon. Needed skills for the Stop 2. Well, you need obviously some hand grip strength, and you need to know the fundamentals of escaping such hand grips. You need to have a general working knowledge of weapon awareness and use. You also need to have verbal and nonverbal skills, like command presence. But verbal skills are important through all the stops. There's reason to speak, yell, and give commands, through all the 6 stops. You obviously need some level of athleticism, and we talked about strength, but also some level of fitness to make these things successful. And, you also need an overall general fighting knowledge to make all this. Charge in, it's chaos, as we will demonstrate in a second. You might grab a thumb, he might grab your thumb with his pinky or something, but it's a chaos grab when it first starts. But let's just look at the science of this so that we can be comprehensive. The same hand grabs here, the same hand grabs here, both hands grab here. Same side grabs, you know. Then you have a cross grab over here and a cross grab over here, and both hands may wind up cross grabbing. You just never know. The same equation works on the lower line, where you would have same, both, cross, cross, both. These are the, when you're practicing, you're doing a seminar or whatever, you can follow these guidelines and make sure everybody catches on to all the possibilities. And just one more interesting point I learned from catch is a lot of times, you know, we're used to grabbing from the top, but it's not uncommon in catch to grab with a palm up grab in some ways. And so they'll grab this this way, and then it sets up more stuff when you have that palm up or palm down catch, you know. So that's just another one to add to the repertoire. You can come in, do various things with a palm up catch as opposed to the reflexive palm down catch. These grabs, of course, include problems against weapons. Sometimes people grab here, you know, right on your fist. But here, and then of course maybe they grab your expendable baton or stick in certain ways. That happens pulling it out, they grab here, which resembles some of the often ridiculed hand grab exercises in old jiu-jitsu. But you also have it with a knife or a gun. You have the classic grab, saber or reverse grip. Sometimes they grab there. We'll even talk about times when they foolishly reach out and suddenly grab the blade of the knife, you know. But you have the reverse grip, all these problems here. And with the pistol, you have pistol grabs. Now, if you're a bowler scooper, you know, comes 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, a lot of times the gun gets grabbed, or the hand or the forearm gets grabbed coming up. If you're a modern drawer, you pull the gun from the holster, you pivot, goes forward, and then sometimes those may result in high catches. We'll have studies and experiments on all of these. But also, it may not be a grab that is in the beginning of a quick draw. It may be a grab while the guy's got the gun out. The guy's got multiple people. I'm aiming at you, and all of a sudden this guy comes from the side. You know, it's not always about quick draws. But the full spectrum, of course, you have clockwise from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock on the high side, and like from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the various different grips. You have cross grips, and of course people don't just stay out here. They charge in, and you may have what I nickname accordion problems. One arm may be in, one arm may be out, but these chaotic positions need to be discussed and covered. One of the things you could do when you're stuck in the first instant of these, and you don't have to do them, or you could do them, is some sort of kicking. So I always like to use the principle of the statue drill in each position of the stop six to see if you can get some kicks in. And I'm not going to ask you to memorize these, but just introduce them. You can do what you want later. But we can start out here in this position. And one of the things that you might remember, of course, is the round kick. And remember, Rawhide's in this sort of Wing Chun dummy pose where you can train and introduce new people to the idea of these kicks, and then remind yourself of them, you know. But you have a round kick. Remember the progression that we always use: outside, inside, inside, and then outside. And then perhaps at this particular range, you've got that stomp kick. Outside, always thinking about the ankles and the shoelaces. Inside, inside, and then outside. And then, you know, you have that front snapping style kick, especially if you have shoes on. You have a shin kick and a shin kick. Some people realize that, you can just put this leg back for a little bit, is that, you know, the fight may allow you to, your front snap kick may be that way, you know. It may not always be just forward to the knee or to the groin, but you may actually be in a position where that front snapping kick is delivered over here. There's an old military version where you kick the ankle and then push on it. And then usually, well, the person falls down. It works real well when everyone's standing still. But if you're in the chaos of moving around, that foot crush How much you want to bet on that? I don't know. I want to show it to you. I want you to know it exists. But I don't know how much money you want to put on it. But you have this shin, groin, shin possibility, for these front kicks. And then the knees. I have a whole knee set that I don't want you to have to memorize. It's in the unarmed stuff. But nonetheless, I'll show it to you. You have a round knee, a Thai-style side knee. That round knee could also come, and hit the thigh. You have so that's like the outside of the thigh, center of the thigh, inside the thigh, groin. You have inside the thigh, center of the thigh, outside the thigh with a hook, or outside the thigh with a hook, side, straight, alligator tail. You could keep adding the knees in there. The important thing to think about is you're here, knee the sumbitch if you can. What are the fundamental movements? We'll do them in slow motion off of no stress so that we can explain these things. With a grab, there is the classic yank out. And so you might be tied up or something here with your arms, hands, and you may be powerful enough with the use of your body and arm dynamically to rip right out of a grip. And a lot of people will always instruct when you do the rip out, to kind of go in the direction of the opening. That may not be necessary. I have friends around the world, they grab a hold of you, you ain't yanking that out. They're very strong, but they appear to be strong. But so you could say, man, if that guy grabs me, I'm stuck, but there are also people that are deceptively strong. And so you think you could pull out, but you can't. So that's just that quick yank out, high, low, cross, whatever configuration you can experiment with these yank outs. The next classic must-know one is that circular release. And I will incorporate this with a joint lock release in just a second. But you get caught high, if you can circle, sometimes there's a weakening of the position and you can get out with a circular release. If he grabs me here low, you do the same circular release. However, you may be able to use the principles of joint cranks or joint locks to assist that release. He's suddenly in the SVZ or center lock position, and I'm just going to drive this down. This works with a stick, works with a knife, the direction of the tip of the weapon, drive it down, and you just have a variety of joint lock releases. Another one is kind of like a joint lock release, uses the SVZ or center lock, is the elbow rollover. Elbow up, elbow over. Look at that configuration, and I drive my elbow down, which, by the way, resembles a kung fu elbow strike down the center line. However, if the person appears to be very strong, I could also drop my body weight. And when I do that on strong people, just the rollover may not get a release, but if I drop everything with it, it sometimes snaps out. So you have that elbow rollover. Another version of this, I want to be comprehensive and show this. On that low line, if you're having trouble with that and you're kind of busy up here, I have seen people show the knee release. Now that knee release will work on the ground, but the stop 2 is not about the ground. We will cover that in stop 6. So you have the idea that you can use your knee on either side and get a release. He's grabbed again. I feel the tension. I tried a couple of things. Man, he's yelling at me. A lot of times you get grabbed. People want to try to punch you, etc. We'll try to cover as much of that as possible. But here, a principal release is going to be this coming in, and like a grappler keeps their head up, because you have to be aware of any type of headlock. I am going to look up and do a squat with almost a tricep pull down at the same time. And I'm released. Run away, turn and fight, whatever you do. We do this with weapons also. So it's a pretty handy thing to try to get out of one. Then you also have the common slap release or push-pull release, which I've used a lot in my life. And you might say, this has to be free to do this. Or if he's got you here, that you could still do this providing he doesn't know what you're doing and doesn't have this locked in. But you have that slap release. thwarted yank out, maybe you can try to have that slap release. This is the classic style grapplers, low hand grab, slap release drill. And not only are they slapping their hands free and maybe yanking out sometimes, but they're also using that joint lock release too. But anyway, this is a great exercise. Low line grab, sometimes people are really bent over doing it. So once you're free from the stop to grab problem, you're free to use your weapon, you're free to try to escape, or you can drop back to all the stop one standoff kind of methods that we talked about in stop one of the series. Now the exercises, and there are a bunch of them. We can't fit them all in. But you know, this is about just pure, quick self-defense in these problem areas. We're in reverse grips. He comes out, I catch, he catches me. Or we're low line, saber reverse grip. I catch, he catches me. Or he attacks me on the high line and I do him on the low line. You know, these are the combinations that we're lucky enough to be able to catch the other guy with the knife for whatever reason. Maybe you just hit him in the head with a chair and he's a little slow. Just remember the difference between event 1 and event 2 and 3 in any type of fight. It's not always Bruce Lee on 3 cups of coffee. It's the diminished fighter that begins to enable you to be able to make these grabs. We ask the question, you know, the who, what, where, when, how, and why. How much TNT and gasoline do you have? TNT being explosive power, and gasoline being the endurance to drive many miles, you know. And suddenly, people start grabbing each other, even in boxing. After they get a little tired, you start to see the clinches and breath catching and all that happens. But we'll go back to this high line for the demonstration. So as soon as you're caught, we would like to suggest you have a spit knee high or one of these kicks or whatever, is you wound his defense, 1, 2, 3, wound his offense, 1, 2, 3, and that sets you up for the following activity. If you're on the low line, for example, and we'll have to raise this up a little bit here, wound his defense, 1, 2, 3, wound his offense, 1, 2, 3. Why 3? Well, it's more than 1 and 2. Why not 17? Well, maybe 17 is what you need to do, but we just pick 3 just to give you a kickoff working model. These are covered extensively in our knife 9, you know, death grip of the knife, where we just work the snot out of all these grabs, ground fighting, all that stuff. Stop 2 is not about those. This is just about an introduction to this. And so if you cut here and he lets go, well, then we expect you to move in and save your life quickly. We have the stick possibilities, you know. I catch, whatever, high or low, and damn it, he caught me. And so at a high line, you also have the fanning strike. Just lower your head so you don't hit yourself in the head. But you might could get these all day long. And you might not get the complete classical fan because he may lock in here and you just can't do that one. But I think you can probably do it to the inside. If you could get perfect, you know, temple strikes. Wow, look at the body articulation involved in that. But for quick self-defense, you know, the principle, use the weapon immediately if you legally can. We use the knife immediately upon a grab. We use the stick immediately upon a grab. So 2 quick tricks you could use. Hit the head until something interesting happens, and then hit the arm, his weapon-bearing limb, until perhaps he drops the knife or whatever. And then if you want more, you know, you may use the stick to disarm the other stick or the knife. There's 3 quick tricks for you when caught in, you know, a stick-caught position. Just you saw me use a stick and strip the knife out too. When you're up here, you've wound, weakened his defense, weakened his offense, and you can also shoot for that knife strip here. Watch out for your thumb. Otherwise, you'll rake the top of your thumb with the knife. But just get it out there, and there you can try after you've wounded, after maybe you've kicked him in the shin, spit in his eye, etc. You might take a shot at that quick. Just watch out for your own hand in that process. Now's the time to learn to get it out of the way. What will happen, how you get into this double grab situation, one high, one low, I'm telling you, it has happened. There is case history in police and war and crime that if you ask me, I can give you examples. Horrendous shootings with police where both guys have wound up like this. And on the ground and standing. And so I'm not going to repeat them here. It'll take up too much time and bore you to tears. But this shit happens. And that's why we're doing it. And so you've got this grab. You have two high, or maybe one high, one low, or maybe both low. It doesn't know, because when you're struggling, the gun may wind up in different positions. So here's one quick thing to worry about. And I'll just put this up, and you can we can highlight this here. If is at all possible, let's say you make a high catch, if you can move up to where you're on his wrist more, we'll turn right around. This is a pretty good idea, because what we don't want to happen is that. And so the higher up you go on the wrist, you're not going to completely stop it, but you're going to limit the possibility of him pulling the gun. And the same thing down here on the low end is try to control. If you're up here, he has full wrist. If it's down here, he has less wrist. So work down to the old expression, work down to the knuckle, but try to control that if it's at all possible. The second thing to try to do is when you immediately make the catch, take the gun out far, because then he has that much further to try to shoot you. So whether it's high or whether it's low, take the gun away, because you want to move your gun in and shoot him, and you don't want him to be able to do that. So basically speaking, we have a catch here, we have a catch here, and if you could worm your, that, all you need to do is turn in and shoot, and that's how you can solve the question. As soon as you're grabbed in a lethal force situation, use the weapon immediately, if you could legally do so. So there's that quick tips. Control the distance, control the wrist and the hand, and then you be the one that comes in. And this has happened in real life many, many times. You don't really go to the shooting range and shoot like this, do you? This is what has saved people's lives. And we use these wooden guns that shoot something, and it's absolutely harmless. It cannot hurt you. And this gives us a way to gauge if we're hitting the person. If we're not, we're fighting, we can turn in and shoot, and they're very handy and perfectly safe to use. And you can get a lot of interesting trigger pulling close-up training done with just a simple thing like this. Next exercise I'd like to introduce and stop to is something we call the feel for the drop. And that is the person that you've collided with, and somehow you're in the clutches of each other's grips. Somehow this person lets go and drops his hand. Now, what is he dropping his hand for? And that could be getting a weapon. And so, this makes us discuss that subject of weapon carry sites. And that is, of course, primary carry site, think quick draw. Secondary carry site is think backup. And tertiary carry site, think lunge and reach. So, a primary carry site's usually around the belt line and the pockets. And if you have the classic belt, the belt buckle is probably 12 o'clock. The pelvis, or we used to call it appendix, we used to call it the pelvis carry. Now they call it the appendix carry, like 1:30. The hip carry, 2:50, 3 o'clock, 3:10. SOB, small of the back, maybe 6 o'clock. Any crazy cross draw, now we're talking 10 o'clock low, or the 10 o'clock high. And so you can use the clock to try to define some of these, but those were the quick draw stick, knife, and gun weapons are usually kept. Secondary backup, secondary think backup, and that's under the shirt, the neck knife, up the pants, down inside the boot, carry sites like that. And then tertiary is lunge and reach. And if someone releases and lunges over to a tabletop or a bookshelf or whatever, glove box in a car, that's a lunge and reach type problem. The point is that you become aware that the grip is lessened, and does he reach up and try to hit you? No, the hand seems to be disappearing. He's probably pulling a weapon, and that's why that's pretty important to concern with. So we have some drills for that. The feel for the drop, and you have to ask your question. Why is that hand suddenly not engaged with fighting you? It's not punching you. It's suddenly disengaged in one of these methods and drops down to these common carry sites. And we say, and to summarize grappling very easily, is you have branch up, full rotation of the shoulder, branch straight, full rotation of the shoulder, and branch down, full rotation of the shoulders. 3 arm principles, and it's like 6-8 months of jiu-jitsu just in that one paragraph explanation. And so start making your lists for these things. And one of the branch down favorites, of course, is that classic, goes under a couple of names, rear armbar hammerlock, whatever it might be called in your system. It's fundamentally the same. They're not always easy to do, and then sometimes they are. And I just know I've done it a lot in arresting people. And you may not have to worry about passing a jiu-jitsu test and doing this perfectly. It may just be an arm smother, a simple arm wrap or smother that interrupts him grabbing in any one of these positions. Because, look at the appendix or pelvis carry. Look at the arm position. Look at the hip carry. Look at the SOB. And even possibly these cross draws, you're still getting that configuration. And the big question everyone asks, and I wonder about too, should I hit him first and then do it? Should I do it and hit him first? I don't know. It just depends. Because, if you stun him, then that might be a lot easier. And then other people in old school training would stun the arm, if possible, to weaken the bicep, and then maybe you could do this a little bit better. But at any rate, when that arm drops, you have that configuration. I am fond of, that vertical clap that catches around this elbow and comes in. Now here's the perfect one, Not up here on the shoulder, but down here on the elbow. And from here, you can do a multiple amount of, you could strike, you could snap the elbow by stepping around, you could zip him down on the ground, you can put your knee in the bend of his leg and drive him down, various different finishes. But when you feel, and that's all in stop 4, that's why you have to get that one, because we describe that, and also we have an excellent video called The Arms Race, which covers these 3 different positions. But at any rate, that's one quick solution. You feel the detachment, and you see the drop maybe coming in, getting the arm wrap, or at best, some sort of arm smother in case he won't go in that position. Remember, that was a branch down presentation of some kind. Look at all the branch down presentations you have with all the quick draw spots that you might run across. If you're going to pull your gun, can you legally shoot him? There's a situation, you just can't. I see this all the time. These guys in training trying to create drills and so forth for stress quick draws, pulling guns out against unarmed people. Yes, there's a potential for bluff, which we talk other times, but you can't shoot an unarmed man unless the circumstances percolate to that peak where you can. There are totality of circumstances that do percolate to that peak. But please be aware, all these guys drawing guns against unarmed people when they're in grappling positions, if Hulk Hogan is attacking Pee Wee Herman, Pee Wee Herman could probably pull his gun out and shoot the Hulk. If Pee Wee's attacking the Hulk, everyone will wonder why Hulk Hogan pulled his gun out and shot Pee Wee Herman. It seems to be unnecessary other circumstances. Now, what if the situation is reversed then? I'm here, I get a circular release, and for whatever reason, I see he's got a gun on. I see he's got the clip of a knife in his pocket. He has 3 people coming. It's a dark and stormy night, whatever the totality of circumstances is. I reach for my pistol. If he grabs my hand, it is very common that people freak out into pistol retention mode at this point, and they push the gun in the holster, and they start doing headbutts, which could knock you out, and so forth. But really, the gun's not out of your holster yet. You can let go of the gun, step away from the gun, and slap release if he isn't charging you. If he is charging you, knuckle down, or do the dance with him back to get all this stuff done. And right now, I just want to mention this idea of a single hand arm drag. Arm drags are often two hands, aren't they? But, if I can just pull him aside, I have a clear path then perhaps to pull this gun out. You don't have to do an arm drag. I'm just saying you could possibly do that. And then you take the steps of stop 3, stop 4, stop 5 that happen later. And so all I'm asking you to remember, and by the way, this is quite a novel move, as I've been told by NYPD the defensive tactics people from all over the world, this particular move. He grabs your hand. Your hand is reaching for the folding knife in your pocket. It's reaching for your baton. It's reaching for a handgun, whatever. I let go of the weapon, step back, slap release, and then if I still think I need to, I can pull the gun out. So that is, he's felt the release, and he's followed me down to interrupt. He might be smart enough, it just might be something he instinctively does. So you have step back, slap release, go. The next part of this is, he's a little behind the curve, I get a release, and as I start, he grabs the top of the handgun, because if he catches here, we already know what I told you to do. You can destroy the kneecap, the pelvis, you could zipper right up the person. But he's grabbed this time the top of the gun, and what I'm going to ask you to do then is just yank the gun back and wipe downward. If it's a slide of a semi-auto, you'll be okay. It's when it goes backwards, not forwards, that you might have a problem. Boom, and you get that release that way. So there's two solutions to two possibilities. Remember, pistol disarming is a series that begins from the carry site, from a disarm from the carry site, a disarm during the delivery, a disarm occurs at just weapon presentation of threat or whatever, and then a disarm while the gun's presented and firing. And that's where you could get disarmed in any one of those phases, and that's what you have to worry about when you're trying to retain your weapon. Remember that people will accidentally grab the knife. You see this in training all the time. Rubber knife, dull metal knife, and then you have to get it. This happens in ground fighting all the time too. Guy grabs the knife and they continue to wrestle for a minute, minute and a half. Coach needs to run over and said, man, your fingers are gone because you can't do this. And one of the things I like to show folks too is if you feel that knife grab, immediately work that knife in the hand, get it out, and continue to do what you need to do. So that knife grab, work that thing to instinctively, because it can happen, does happen all the time. And I've worked numerous cases through the years where victims have grabbed knives and got severe cuts, but then also didn't let the guy keep the knife. Rarely, but it has worked. Rarely. It's not advice. I'm just saying what I've seen through the years. And so now, when you have this expandable baton, remember that you have a draw from here, same side, a draw from here, same side, a cross draw from here, or a cross draw from here. Many countries have a gun this side, stick this side. Countries without guns have the stick probably on their primary side. But you have a series of things. He may catch me from here. And so real simple, we have a whole set for this. And you have to look other places for. We have a stick retention video. But for today's simple self-defense, you just have a push-pull that could probably get that stick out the rest of the way. Even if it's an expandable baton and closed, you can pull the closed one out, and then use the momentum to open it up. So that's one of a number of possible escapes from these grabs during the stick draw. Then you present the weapon, and he catches your wrist, Well, you slap that free. Remember that he may also grab and punch. Ooh, we got to knock that over, slap that free. Always remember that. Here's a classic one. He grabs, pulls down, and starts to punch. You have to be prepared for that one. Push, pull, release, and continue from there. But now we have our stick up, and if he grabs here, bang, 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 push, pull, release. If he grabs the stick in the center, one of the simplest and best things, is this rowing motion. I go with two hands. Sometimes I might could pull this free. I spin him. He throws a punch at me. I can use the two hands, to raise the stick up. But in isolation of this right here, I grab this, I make a left turn. This now puts him in sort of a modified SVZ or center lock position. I'm going to try to do two things. Roll this way, trying to catch the opening of the hand, and sort of hammer down forearm to forearm on this. And these two things together can often get a release. The thing is that I see people do this, and they try this, and I see all these big sharks. You don't need this. It's just right here. Grab, boom, it's right there. Keep it on that center line, more or less. That's the same side grab over here. I recommend to always go to the outside. If you go to the inside, you can make this work, but he could also clock you. So I always try to suggest to people, go to the outside. Here's a cross grab. The configuration, same thing. Go to the outside, attain that modified position, and just come on down and get it this way. What if he grabs your forearm in the stick? Another common thing. Well, we used to refer to that as double unlocking or double unlockings. Push, pull, row to get that happening. He goes, Anyway, could be that way too. Push, pull, release, and row. And then finally, the quick set I'd like to show here for you to work on is two hands on the stick. And now let's see what that looks like. He's got this. Boom. Punch him, his hands are busy. Hopefully he doesn't know this trick, And then second, you grab with two hands, and I'm going to try to do the same thing. Make a left turn or a right turn, and try to use this as quickly as possible. I have practiced this. If you hit this hard enough, this may drop down to this and get both unlockings at the same time. Don't count on it, but it can happen. And you just rear up and bang, bang, bang. You have the same option on this side too. But you can then, if that's not going to happen, you think it's going to happen, you can unlock that one and unlock that one. Forward and forward. Forward is back. Rowing forward is okay, better than rowing backwards, but you can do the backward row too. So these are some quick stop to releases on your weapons that everybody should know, some fundamental moves. And now we'll just finish up this category by talking about what happens when you attach fingers to fingers, And one night I was working overtime at a bar, off-duty police security thing, and I was trying to clear the place out. And one of the tricks is you start turning the lights out in the back, and people gravitate to the light, to the light, to the light. And the last couple, you pretty much got to throw them out. I got to go, I can't stay here all night. So I went reaching for this guy, and I caught a couple of his fingers on the side because his hands went out, and I twisted it. I came in, I took him out. Took him outside on the parking lot, pitched him free. Said, get out of here, the old line, I don't know where you're going to go, but you can't stay here. And so then I thought, that was pretty cool. That worked really well, and it was rather impulsive on my part. Then I started to go to Aikijitsu and a little bit of Aikido. And they spent some time doing fingers. And my other friend was with me. He said, I don't know if I can believe that. I said, well, that some of that can work because I've done it. Some of it can work. And so the classic that I told you, if you have fingers and fingers perfectly matched, strong guy's going to win, But fortunately, we usually have a chaotic catch. But let's just say we have two for training. We've got chaotic catch on both. What I'm going to do, I always call this shooting six guns because it has a cool name and you can remember it. But you just turn it, like this, and then start shooting. And from here, from Aikijitsu and other connections to Aikido, you actually have 4 takedowns from here. You have this way, palm on the ground there, palm on the ground there, and both palms on the ground over his back. And we used to practice that. And the name of the game, of course, is to really just to hurt the fingers. Here we have, so that's shooting six guns. Basically, caught, turn, not straight up, but a little sideways. Look at the position of the hands like you have two toy guns. You get that and go. And what was curious about this too is I was teaching the San Diego at the San Diego California Police Academy, mostly attended by their SWAT team. And Tim Lacuna and I were there, and we just accidentally, off the outline, did a finger thing. I got in a position, and I was able to do it. And the SWAT, what was that? I said, well, it's just a couple of finger locks. Finger locks, yes. And these were guys, they're power lifters, they're big defensive tactics people, and they wanted to do finger locks. So I had to change the outline. Tim and I did probably an hour of them. They loved them. They were body slamming each other down. They just had a big kick out of it. Now, I broke a guy's pinky once that was choking me in South Korea by these concepts, you know, and of hurting fingers. And, you know, there are judo champions that have won gold medals with broken fingers. But you and I are not judo champions. Many people have a severe reaction, certainly visually, you know, to seeing their fingers broken in a different angle. So don't make too much fun of these. They could work for you. Another common problem, you know, is the guy catches your forearm. The lead forearm. When I was a kid growing up, New York City and etc., this was a standard deal. The guy puts his guard up to fight, your forearm gets snatched and dropped, and the punch comes in. And that was typical, you know, and I never knew. I had to do Filipino martial arts before I was shown that. Said, hey, that's pretty cool. But, you know, you also have the option of trying to get off to the side that way. But anyway, if it's just a grab, an aggressive grab, a guy complaining that it's not a UFC fight, it's just a grab, get out of here, I'm sick of you guys, you cops coming, whatever. You grab the pointy finger and you take them down into what many systems refer to as the duck walk. And you know, that's just right here. Just look at this. I grab this and you get it like that. Let's turn around so we can see that. Get it like that. Grab it, and then it just, you know, goes down like this. And if you do it kind of slow, you might get a body manipulation. If you do it fast, it may break. But nonetheless, that's what it just looks like. And it's just a grab of a forearm grab, and you get the pointy finger, a duck walk. And there's lots of hieroglyphical movements that they have fun with, you know. We're not going to worry about that. On that subject matter is the obnoxious boss. That you're going to get fired when you do this. But there's that pointy finger. Take it, snatch it, do the same thing. You know. They'll fire you, but at least you put them down on the floor. Handshake grab on your forearm. Take you away. You're in a foreign country, and the wrong army, the wrong police, the terrorists are hauling people away in the embassy or in the jungle or whatever. Can't hit him yet or whatever, you know. Do a curl. This often exposes this pinky. And then you have, I like to get a hold of the palm, and, you know, I'm going to steer this pinky up and over and try to take him down. And if he knows to fall to escape pain, if you do it slow enough, you might steer him. Otherwise, you may just break his finger. But nonetheless, that is the classically trained. You're probably not, these are not combat scenarios. They're finger-breaking awareness drills. Remember that distinction. You're learning the ideas about this. Here's a double grab. It's a classic from small circle jiu-jitsu, which, by the way, many of these come from. And so we're here. You have the slap release drills we did earlier, but I want you to be aware that these things exist. I'll come up, I'll do a curl here, exposing the ball of the thumb and the thumb, and get as much of it as possible. And this becomes kind of an outer wrist throw. And you could do right side, left side. It's a classic. It may be very handy to do. You're here, curl, catch that, help it. 85% wrist twist, 15% elbow drill into the body accentuates is pretty good. And then for your general knowledge, we used to have a military finger break. And so that if you did catch something, remember our ground fighting. In order for them to grab you, they got to put their hands on you. And if they do, sometimes you can get their fingers. And that's a great idea. One of my friends, Geordie Lavers McBain in Australia, is a Brisbane world champion team coach for BJJ, a whole other assorted grappling arts, right? This guy teaches the big leagues. And one of his students asked him one time, Sensei, when we're doing randori, what are you thinking about while you're doing it? And he said, well, if you must know, I'm thinking two things. The first thing is not to break your fingers. The second thing is not to hit you. And that's what I think about when I'm doing randori. And I said, that's gold, man. And that's why I love to repeat that story. And but in the military approach of this that they showed us years ago was you catch a finger, or if you break a finger somewhere, and if you have the time and the wherewithal, twist it and accentuate the break even that much more. And so it's just something that doctors have to worry about later, and your enemy soldier is that much longer at a commission, especially if it's a trigger finger, just, you broke it, and just twist it a little further and rip some stuff free. As an example of some finger stuff, if I get here, for example, maybe he's got my wrist, and I decide, due to the circumstances, the rest of his gang is coming or something, I need to draw this, I need to get my gun out, scare them all away, whatever. And so, let's just say I'm right here. If I turn this here, I have the beginning of that SVZ and center lock. If I incorporate that twist with this release, it may buy me 1 or 2 seconds to get this out. Don't discount the SVZ or center lock until somebody who knows what they're doing does it to you. A slight bend here, which might be a V or a V, or a bad S or a bad Z, or many people refer to it as center lock because I'm going to twist the palm down center line. Now, whether that I have my fingers doing this or not, if the elbow goes above the wrist, you got to do something else. And usually people come in and catch this and twist it, and it starts to look kind of martial artsy. But the first few seconds of this can work, as we've shown in other videos. So all I'm asking you to do is, if you get that, think, you got those fingers, think this way. And I told you I did this to get a guy out of a bar one time by coming in and taking him out. So you can incorporate that into stop-to situations. I got that. He's grabbed me low, high, it doesn't really matter. I do a release and a center lock, and I just have a second. Even if he's trying to pull his gun, I've bought a second to try to get mine out first. So that's a crash course in stop-to. Just some fundamentals. The grabs can occur 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the ground. These principles have applications to everything. You don't get grabbed on the start. Sometimes you get grabbed in the middle of a fight. Grapplers are grabbing you all the time, So we discussed those in those other stops. Remember, the stop 6 is just super quick self-defense moves for the collisions. And feel free, and I encourage you to shoot off into these other areas of study to get more comprehensive information about these problems.